I'm worried for my son about what's going to happen because I really don't know. It's got a porch that's falling in. Look at this and say this is only so many years from the house being condemned. Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farm, and today I want to tell you a very real and personal story that has been traumatic for me and for my family. And then I want to tie that into something that's happening today. About 12 years ago, I think, my wife and I were wanting to buy a house. We had a family, we had 5 children, and we could not at that time afford to buy a house, and we were living in a housing arrangement where essentially we didn't own this home, and we were fixing up a home that was in very bad shape in lieu of paying any kind of rent or housing payment. And by paying for our living arrangement through improving the property, we were able to save money towards building a house and getting to where we are now. And that was a good situation for us. But there was something we didn't know or understand, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, but the house we lived in at that time had past due property taxes that had not been paid in a very long time. And one day someone showed up at the house and there was like, hey, just letting you know, we bought this property, we now own it, and you have to leave. And that was not a very fun moment because I did not have the credit, I did not have the down payment, I did not have the means to buy a house. And that put us in a bad situation. And now, today, we have this awesome property and it's great, but I'm still being in a situation where you have young kids and you don't know where you're going to go or how you're going to make it is a traumatic experience that will always change the way I think about life. I came out here to the pond because I like to record with a natural backdrop, but all of a sudden it started to really pour rain. So I'm going to run up into the Quonset hut and record the rest of this. So to finish that story I was just telling, we got very short notice that we no longer had a place to live, and we had no backup plan. We didn't have much time to make a plan. We didn't have the money saved. We didn't have the credit. We didn't know what we were going to do. And this was emotionally traumatic for us. My wife and I were just looking at each other. We were still fairly young at the time and saying, what are we going to do? You know, we're just getting by as it is. What are we going to do? And we had no prior knowledge that back taxes were owed on this property. And we lost, or we didn't own it. The owner lost the house. And there was a very strong sentimental connection to this particular property as well, which is like a secondary factor of this being traumatic. And so, you know, we did what anyone does. We figured it out. We got a new place to live. We pretty soon bought a house that we were much happier with. Now we ended up here and everything's great. But I've always carried that with me ever since. The injustice of the fact that that house, the people who did own that house had owned it for a long time with no mortgage, and they still lost it to property taxes. And you know, with my political leanings, I already would have felt this way, but I very strongly feel that property taxes are immoral. That you should not, the idea that you can purchase anything, whether it's a house, a car, a jacket, a hat, a boat, anything, you can purchase something. And the government can say that from now until forever, we will tax you on that every year. Not because you bought it, not because you sold it, but just forever you will pay taxes on this. And not just taxes, but substantial taxes. And if you're not able to, we will take your home. To me, that's always been immoral, and it's a problem with our system of government. And I understand that some taxes have to be collected for the government to provide for general good and fix roads and school grants and all the things that need to happen in a society. There is a place for taxes, but I find property taxes to be particularly repulsive, especially if you own the home outright, meaning you've paid off the mortgage or bought the house for cash, or if you are elderly or retired or on Social Security, that they can say, I know you've lived in this house for 50 years and you've owned it outright for 30 years and you're retired and you're living off of, you know, your pension or your Social Security. that they can still repossess your house. So if you have any role in voting for local elections or any role in advocating for a change in policies, to me that's an obvious one. And I know Florida's talking about doing away with the property tax. And I'm all for that. But now let's fast forward to why that's relevant today. So my son decided several years ago on his career path. While he was still in high school, he said, I want to be a high school math teacher. And his friends and his girlfriend and some of his family members gave him a lot of hassle about it. They're like, you're a smart kid. He's driven. He's a very serious young man, takes his life seriously. Said, what you're doing is signing up to take on school loans to get a career that doesn't pay you anything. Like that's going to give you, you're never going to be very successful in life as a high school teacher. Said, I don't care. I want to be a high school teacher. Now me, with an entrepreneurial spirit, having been in business myself for quite a while now and won and lost at some different businesses and learned some lessons, my approach was then, what could I do to teach my son how to have a successful life financially while doing a job that doesn't pay that well? And, I've been having these conversations with him for years now about things like living debt-free. And you guys who follow the channel know I've been working hard to eliminate debt. I've been selling equipment that I really love. Like when I sold my last dump trailer, I loved that piece of equipment. It was, a great part of the channel. It made good videos, but I sold it because it had a loan on it. And I didn't want to carry a loan on something that I could live without. Well, I've had that conversation with my son so many times, and he really got invested in those financial principles, and he's been living debt-free, working just a regular job that didn't require any credentials. He's earned enough money that he's paid cash for all his schoolings, and he has saved a substantial amount of money. And the deal I made with him is that if you are financially responsible and you're paying cash for your schooling and you're saving the rest of your money, I'll continue to cover things like your insurance and your phone bill and not charge you anything to live here and buy all your food. And I'm still subsidizing him in some way because I see that he's being so responsible. So he's saved up some money, and the plan that I've pitched to him is to start investing in buying properties cash and renovating those properties using sweat equity to multiply the value of those properties. And today is the day to make that plan a reality. And this is where it became an emotional thing, and some hard conversations were had within our family that we hate the prospect of someone losing their home to property taxes and a tax sale. But also, we can't stop that from happening. And tomorrow, the county tax sale is happening and 150 properties are being auctioned off, and my son has saved a substantial amount of money. And my plan that I've put forward to him is to purchase a home affordably, and I will help him renovate it, and he can own his own home by the age of 20 years old with no debt and be started on a path where a teacher's salary is plenty of money if you don't have a mortgage and you don't have a car payment and you don't have any credit card payments. So I believe strongly in that process. But when I broached the subject, with my wife, the two of us had issues with, is it moral to buy these tax foreclosure properties at the county tax sale? I said, at the end of the day, is what you're doing hurting these people? And so we set out some criteria, and we searched for houses that didn't have occupants, that were abandoned completely, and that's why the taxes are delinquent. But also, all of the houses within the tax sale will be sold tomorrow, whether it's my son buying them or someone else. They are going to be sold tomorrow. And nothing that we do changes that for any of the people who had a claim to those houses. And in my opinion, the person who buys these houses, a lot of these houses are on the verge of being condemned, and you can buy them for $5,000. You can buy a house that would be condemned in a few years, and the county has to pay to have it knocked down. And if you buy those, you put money into them and you fix them up, you can make a real difference in a small town. The town we live in has a population of 4,000 people. I've already done this myself, purchased houses, renovated them, and then resold them or rented them out. I've done it a couple times myself, and I think it's a great wealth building business model. And if enough people are doing that, sometimes you see landlords painted as a villain, but these houses are being condemned. I've spoken extensively to the code enforcement officer who has to go through the process of condemning houses, and it's not a pretty picture. And anyone who's stepping in and saving those houses and renovating them is contributing to the public good. So we've given it a lot of thought, and tomorrow my son's gonna go try to buy a house at tax auction. All right, so that was a crazy, unexpected result. Spent the last few hours at the tax auction, and there was a lot of kind of reading of the rules of how it all works, and that you're buying at a risk, that you could lose your investment, and what happens if there's a different kind of lien on it, or an easement, or all these different things. We got a lot of information, and then they started auctioning off properties, and I was absolutely in shock at what these properties went for. It's just unbelievable. People were buying pieces of land for $1, and not $1 plus the taxes, just $1. And then there's like $120 of paperwork and fees that you have to pay to purchase something at the sale and to get the deed and all that. But $121, people bought land. There was also 7 acres just down the road from me that was sold for $11,000. There were 150 properties, and there were 8 that my son was interested in. 4 of them had the taxes paid yesterday and were no longer on the auction list. So there were 4 properties he wanted. My son just bought 3 houses for a total of $15,000 with the fees and everything included. He paid $15,000. He now owns 3 houses. Absolutely unbelievable. Now, we've spent most of the day doing this. I've got to run some errands. I want to run out and take a look at these houses real quick. I'm going to take the camera out here and show you what he bought. And then afterwards, I want to give some more thoughts on this whole process and just how I view it and what this means in terms of risk and reward. And I'm worried for my son about what's going to happen because I really don't know. And so I want to get into all that. But first, let me get my stuff done. We'll go look at these houses. Hopefully it stops raining by then. So this is house number 1. This went for $2,100 at the tax auction. And this is by far the worst shape of any of the houses that he bought. So let's take a look. The siding is awful, but it's got like some kind of a brick facade underneath it. I thought that was brick, but it's like, it looks like fake. It had fake brick under the siding. It is fake. So the roof may not leak. It doesn't look awful, but that's got a big bow in it. So that's a big problem. Yeah, and then all of the fascia and everything is missing from there. So water's getting inside the house in those spots. Broken window. There's a broken window here. This house has been abandoned for a long time. So there'll be a clean out project. Probably the first thing that'll happen on any of these properties is I'm going to bring an excavator out here and clear this tree that's fallen down and blocking the whole back. So this is where I get to do fun stuff to help, is all this needs cleaned up, and you'll have videos coming out on that. Can't see much over there. So it looks like we could have some serious foundation issues. I mean, the appearance is the foundation is bad, yes, which is really one of the worst problems you can have, which is why this house went for such a low number. It's got a porch that's falling in. Like, this is only so many, look at this and say, this is only so many years from the house being condemned. And as you look at this, what we talked about and what they tell you at these tax auctions, they give you some disclaimers and stuff, is that worst case scenario, I mean, you have to be prepared that you could lose everything you spent and just put money into it and get nothing but the raw land. But what I said was, for what he paid for the 3 houses, you could bulldoze this one. And if one of the 3 is in good shape, then it was all worth it. So this is house number 2. This was $6,100. It's in a nice part of our little town here. Not super nice, but not bad. So we can't see anything. You know, it's got these old wooden windows in need of an update. You know, when I've done projects like this before, I replaced all the windows anyway. There's no doorknob. But as we looked at these before buying, we were trying to look for roofs that didn't leak. That goes a long way in what you're going to find inside, which it's still always a guessing game, but so there's no broken windows here. The siding seems sound. Got some trees that need cut out here.
Tons of little twigs sticking out of the ground. There's a door handle on
The backyard was not mowed regularly, it would appear.
Mowed.
So this is turning into a forest. I wonder how far back the property goes. It looks like it could have a big backyard, but these are turning into actual trees.
Yeah.
Can you see through that window at all? Looks like there's a roof failure on what looks like a back porch back here. It's kind of caved in. So there's probably extensive water damage in this back section. But like I said, it kind of looks like this is a back porch. It's in pretty bad shape. Now, the conversation that we were having before the tax auction is that if I had to guess, what is this house worth? My guess would be that this is worth, in the condition it's in, it's worth maybe $20,000, $25,000. Because after you renovate it, it could be worth $80,000 or $90,000. But it's all a guess because we don't know condition. It could be worth nothing and need knocked down, or it could already be worth 40. We just don't know. So it's always a gamble. This blue house that we're driving by right now is the 3rd house that my son just bought. And he owns it now, but someone else lives there, so we're not getting out. We've driven by and looked at it, but that is all we can get until we approach the occupant. I tell you what, I couldn't be more excited for my son. I'm also really nervous about the liability of owning these homes and how he's going to handle that. But also, I'm going to be right there with him. And you're going to see some videos about the process of renovating these houses. I'm adding it to my list of things that I want to accomplish, but it's all going to be dependent on he has to come up with the finances to put into the renovations, and he has to be proactive in doing the work. But I'm excited and I'm also nervous. But you don't get great results in life without taking risk. And I think this is a justified risk. And I think by following the same path and working with these low-cost houses that you can add value to, I really see an opportunity where my son can live happily on a teacher's salary. And that's what I want for him. So I'm excited about it. I hope you guys are interested in watching videos on the house renovation. If those videos aren't popular here on the YouTube channel, I'll put them on my other channel that I don't really post to very often. But for now, that's going to wrap up the video. I appreciate you taking time to watch. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.